Hi, I'm Curious Dude, and this is the top 5 things I love about having a vintage Volkswagen and the top 5 things I hate about having a vintage Volkswagen. The number one thing I love about having a vintage Volkswagen is the iconic style and vibe. There's just something so cool about a vintage Volkswagen, whether it's a bug or a bus or a bay window or a thing or a Carmen Ghia or anything else. They're just so iconic and they're really appreciated by people, not just in the car hobby, but outside. I can't tell you how many times I've drove my old 62 Bug or my 74 Cantmobile, and there's just hundreds of people that would congregate around the vehicle at a car show. It was really pretty cool, and there's such an iconic look that people just love them. So that's the number one thing. Number two thing is the driving experience. So driving a Volkswagen, you have to drive slowly, carefully. I'd say it's very contemplative or almost meditative. It forces you to slow down, be present, and to enjoy the drive. The number three thing is that Volkswagens are simple. Mechanically, they're simple. Electrically, they're simple. So it's really easy to work on them. Even if you're not super mechanically inclined, you have the ability to learn and to figure it out with minimal tools. I've shared this story often. I had a 62 Bug that hadn't been worked on for 50 years, and I was able to easily remove nuts and screws and machine parts that you would never expect would easily come off. It's just a testament to the engineering that was done that many years ago. So that's number three. They're simple to work on. Number four is the stories that you collect about your own Volkswagen or those of others. People love to talk and share their stories about their cars, and it is so fantastic to hear that and be a part of that community. If you watch some of my other videos, I did a story about Van Gogh, the history on the 74 camper, and it was amazing to get connected with people that had owned that in their family and to get pictures and history. And that's just one of the great things about Volkswagens. Everyone's got a story. And the number five thing I love the most about my vintage Volkswagen is just the Volkswagen community. People are as diverse in the community for Volkswagens as the cars themselves. And it is a really wonderful experience to be part of that. When you go to a Volkswagen car show, you might have a $1,500 jalopy Beetle on one side and a $100,000 split window bus on the other side. And everyone gets along and finds a way to share their passion. That's one of the best things about the community, is just the people. So that's my top 5 things. But what are the top 5 things that I really hate about having a vintage Volkswagen? I have to admit the title's misleading. There's nothing I hate. There are some things that are annoying and are tricky and, can bother you from time to time, but hate's too strong of a word. What's the number one thing I dislike? Well, it's that you can't be in a hurry with a Volkswagen. If you think you'll hop in and quickly drive to the store, get some fuel and get to your destination, probably not going to happen. Not only because the vehicles are terribly underpowered, but because when you get to the gas station, 3 or 4 people are going to have a story about their Volkswagen. They're going to ask you questions about it. You'll get drawn into a conversation about it, and then you'll eventually get to where you were going. So you never really can be in a hurry with a vintage Volkswagen, because going slow and enjoying the moment really is part of the vibe. Number 2 thing that I dislike is that they're not super reliable. Now, they were well engineered 50, 80 years ago, but technology's come a long way, let's say that. So you will hear squeaks and rattles and clunks, and you will kind of feel like you have to look over your shoulder all the time when you own a vintage Volkswagen, because you're always on the lookout for a problem. And that's why if you find a true Volkswagen fan driving, they probably have a box of parts and tools also in the Volkswagen, because you can always expect to have a little surprise at one moment or another. The number 3 thing that can be annoying is parts. So there are lots of aftermarket parts for Volkswagens, which is great. The quality sometimes is not great. Also, you can't just go to the local parts dealer to get things. You're probably ordering them online. They might have to come from Europe. And so there's time, waiting for those things to arrive and then installing them. And you have to find someone to work on them, which honestly can be hard. There's not a lot of mechanic shops, depending on where you live, that really want to dive into working on vintage vehicles. So you have to become mechanically pretty skilled on your own. But most important, to get quality parts. Be part of the Volkswagen community has really helped, because now you begin to learn what you should trust for pieces and not. The fourth thing, and this is probably the most important thing that's annoying, and it's a big deal, is rust. Volkswagens are old, they're made of steel, and they will rust. Window seals break or seep, and water gets into areas it shouldn't. The heater channels by nature have hot air blowing through them, so they tend to have condensation, they rust. And so you know what? All Volkswagens will have some kind of rust. But to deal with it and repair it, wow, may cost tens and tens of thousands of dollars. And the last thing that's kind of annoying about Volkswagens is actually the smell. For many people, that's something they love, and I agree. Coconut fiber, horsehair, all the interior vinyls, and then you combine that with a sweet mixture of gas and oil. It's a really cool smell when you're driving it, but when it sits in your attached garage for a month or for 6 months at a time, what happens is that oil is sweating off and the fuel smell from the carburetor sort of, it's always present in the environment. So that can get a little bit annoying because your garage is always going to have a hint of Volkswagen. So there you go. There's my top 5 things I absolutely love about having a vintage Volkswagen and the top 5 things I hate about a vintage Volkswagen. Thanks so much for watching. Hope to see you again.